And usually they are in the shape of, let me pull up one from Google. They usually give you quick information about who the user are, right? For example, they talk about their age, occupation, status, what their goals are, what their frustration are. So when it comes to like designing for social good, you want to understand what are the goal and frustrations of your users are, and it is usually offer you a very good insight and helps you with the decision making. So if you haven't done it for your project, just take it 5 minutes, only takes 5 minutes, and look at my mouse here, goals and frustration. Just write it down. What are the goals? What are the frustration, right? So this will really helps you to really hone down and narrow down your ideas, right? Um, so that's what we want to understand about user personas, right? So and user personas often, like, for example, you probably, your solution will probably affect 1 million people, like, or like, let's say like 2,000 people, right? Um, and and within these 2,000, there are different type of users dealing with your problems, right? So understanding the users, so like, just like, have some guesses about the users. What are their goals? What are their motivation? What are their frustrations? And then just by writing down a few sentences about that, we could move on to something more important than user personas. And what it is, it's called customer journey mapping. And customer journey mapping allows you to understand high leverage areas in customer journey. So what do we talk about? So for example, if you want to build a solution for doctors to serve better people who are affected by coronavirus, right? And if you want to make their lives easier, you want to understand how they are currently dealing with the problem, right? And understand the steps that they take to go from accepting a patient to basically diagnose them, to take care of them, to help them move towards recovery, and then release them, right? So these are all the steps that a doctor it would take a doctor to serve a patient, right? So user persona usually, customer journey map usually has 3 sections. Zone A on top, right? Where you write down, take a screenshot of this if you can, right? So on the top, you write down the goals and expectation, and you are writing down the goals and expectation from the point of view of the doctors. What do you want to do? What would be the application if you design it and build it? What would it do to help the lives of the doctors? So that's a goal you want to tackle, you want to attack, right? The zone B of the customer journey map is about the steps that the doctor would take to serve the patient. The first step would be probably the doctor. Each of these rectangles you see on this screen is one steps, right? One phase of, for example, doctor-patient relationship, right? The first phase would be recovery. No, the first phase would be basically receiving the patient to the hospital or receiving a call, right? So right now, for example, when it comes to coronavirus, most of the problems happen here, right? Where there is a lot of people calling and there is not enough, right, services, right? The second phase would be basically diagnosis, right? And the third would be basically, for example, serving the patient, giving them like, hospitalize them. And the fourth phase would be releasing, right? So when you have all these phases, right, then you can understand. And if you see this chart, it says it's basically the emotional journey, of the your customers, which would be in this case doctors. Doctors often have a lot of difficulty in early phases because there are so many patients, right? So their experience here is very low, right? And then when it go usually towards the end, it goes up, right? So when you draw the emotional map, then you could understand in which areas of the experience we need to tackle. So, for example, on this map, I know it for sure. The emotional journey drops at the phase 6, right? So if and also at the phase 3, right? So when I'm thinking about solution, how I can improve the experience, I don't need to improve the number 5 or number 9. I only need to focus on number 3 and number 6, right? If I only improve one of these points, the life of a doctor would become better, right? So when you are identify, right, the emotional journey, the phases that the doctor would take to serve the patients, right? And then you could really isolate one of these points and start thinking about ideas, right? And whatever ideas you come up with, it has, each of those ideas has to serve to improve one of these points, right? So then based off that, you can prioritize your ideas. So hold on a second. All right. All right. So, for example, when you narrow down, for example, one of the steps, for example, you want to focus on the number 6, right? And you want to come up with different ideas, right? And you want to see, okay, what you can do to improve it. One of the cool ways you could do, and it's very fast way, is doodling ideas, right? And we often use this approach in our workshops, and it really our participants really liked it. So you and your team, right, when you say, okay, the areas that we want to focus um, is improving the experience in terms of um, the hospital could serve more patient, right? So we want to build an app for hospitals so they could accept more patient. So that's the idea you want to zoom in on, right? What you could do, just use some stickies, right? And give yourself and your team a limited time, let's say 10 minutes, right? And say, okay, within these 10 minutes, we have to create as many ideas as possible. That's what is called really rapid thinking, right? So give your team 10 minutes, and there is no discussion within these 10 minutes. Each of you create as many ideas as you see here, right? And you don't have to really great at drawing. You could be, you could create ideas like this, right? Or you could, create ideas like this, right? You don't have to be really great. You can just write check boxes and text, right? And after each of your you and your group created many ideas, you could just hang them on the wall or on the whiteboard and look at them and try to vote on them. The way you can vote is just by simply point your finger at one idea, or use some sort of a dots if you have, right? So this way allows you to go quickly from identifying the problem to coming up with many ideas, right? And then narrowing down by voting, right? So this way would really help you to really focus and really pick the idea that you think it would work the best. So this is it pretty much. I think that's a good way that we leave it to you guys. If you have if you have any questions, this is a good time to ask. I would be happy to answer you.
I have one question. Behrad, thanks for the great presentation. And I wonder, because right now we're dealing with quite unusual situation. So you, as a UX UI expert, what are your thoughts about you know, how these regular methods, regular tools are applicable in this crisis situations to what we're dealing here in our hackathon? Meaning, how important is understanding the problem, and how do you actually, you know, modify what we've done daily in this really, really unusual situation that we have these days with a lot of problems in different areas. What are your thoughts on this one? If you could elaborate more.
Like in terms of like how we can find it, can you just like elaborate a bit more on your problem, your questions?
Yeah. Sorry for being vague. Or I mean, the question is, how applicable are these standard methods that you use, you know, for regular
You know, I assume like, you know, there well, it's a lot. It helps you to, because like, you know, right now you have like only few days, right, you to
yeah.
go from the idea to actually an application, right? So you don't have so much time to really develop your ideas. You probably have, by good measure, you have like maybe like few hours at most, right? So my first of all, my advice to you guys is time bound all your efforts. So for example, do not just discuss endlessly about an idea. That doesn't work. That is not the way we develop ideas. And agree with your team that from now till like next hour, we only going to work on the idea, right? Um, so how would you do that, right? um, you have to first agree on the problem that you're trying to solve, right? So what I would do and what I would suggest to you guys, um, give yourself 5 minutes each silently to write down the problem each within your team, right? And then post it on a wall, like a digital wall that you are working on. So there, if there is a team of 5, there will be 5 problem statements. Then quickly, silently vote on the best problem, right? It doesn't have to be the best problem definition, but it's really important. You got to pick a problem statement that no one objects. No, so it's different from consensus. Consensus is all of us has to agree on one problem. Consent says no one has to object an idea, right? So if you have 5 problem statement, pick one that no one has any objection towards. And right now, perfection is our number one enemy, and speed is more important. Pick that problem statement, put it on your digital wall that you are having, right? And below it, again, give your team 10 minutes to work individually on the idea and says, okay, that's the idea, draw solution, the way you are seeing it right now, right? Then probably each of you generate 1 to 3 or 4 or 5 ideas. Then sort them out, right? Give your team 5 minutes to look at the ideas silently. And if you have question, ask the person who created that to just explain quickly, and then pick the best ideas, right? And usually what you can do, right, you can mix the best mix. So when you have like, you know, top 3 ideas, you can mix them together, right? You could say, oh, this part of this idea is cool, this part of this idea is cool, this part of this idea is cool. We can mix them together, right? Then just zoom in on those 3 ideas, right? And then work on them a bit more, right? Give yourself again 5 minutes, right? to sketch more ideas regarding in terms of how we can improve our best ideas, right? And at the end, right, you have a set of sketches to work from, right? And then the next step would be to mock up and prototype your solution, right? And guess what? You already have those prototypes. Those are on the sketches that you did, right? And so this way, instead of talking endlessly about ideas, you can get it done within an hour or maximum 2 hours, then you can move on to implement it, right? So my advice to you, time bound all of your activities within your team. Say that right now, within the next hour, we are going to work on idea generation. When you have the ideas generated, then say in the next hour we are going to remix them and combine the final idea, right? And then in the next hour we are going to prototype, right? And when you are doing that, right, remember, give yourself and your team individual time and do not discuss so much. That's what I could offer to you guys as the golden tip, so you could, by the end of this hackathon, have something implemented.
All right, thanks. You can see that Patre is raising his hand using this function.
Okay,
I
go
don't know
ahead.
if you have any question, so you can either unmute yourself, say something, or you can put it in the chat box if you feel like. By mistake, no worries. So no, it was a mistake. Mistakenly raised his hand. All right. Do you guys have any more questions to Behrad? So Behrad is one of our UX UI mentors. So he's also available for you on the channel related to UX UI and design. So if you have anything, you could easily reach him out via this channel, ask a question. You can also, I think you can, Behrad, you don't mind people reaching out to you directly if applicable?
Absolutely not. Just reach out to me if you have any detailed question. Whenever you are stuck, if you want to.
Great. I see. I see. We have one question from Mula and one comment from Patre. So he says it was a great presentation. So no questions, but we have one from Ula.
Ula, what are you working on? What's the topic that you are working on?
Yeah. So Ula, you might unmute yourself, or you can just stay on the chat if you want.
Yeah. So we have a project. We don't have really specific project to work on now, and we're because I heard about the customer journey, and I was wondering how to put data, because we don't have any doctors that are in our families, let's say. So how do we collect the data to put into those boxes?
So, do you know people who are dealing with coronavirus at the moment?
Not really.
Okay. So like, you want to pick an idea that you could relate to, and you could basically find people that are dealing with the problem, right? So if, I don't assume that you could find a doctor right now to work with, because they have to save lives, right? So that's off the map, right? You could find, I'm sure if you ask people, you could find people who've been dealing with coronavirus. So now, or like in before. If not, I would look around, like, your bakery and your local restaurant is getting hit by coronavirus. Like, everyone is getting hit by it, right? So you want to pick a target group that you could relate to. You could pick from, you could pick a topic that affected yourself, right? So you could become the customer and draw from your own experiences, right? Or you could just go out and ask your local restaurant how they're feeling, what they're doing, right? So you could, there is a lot of rush to, improve the workload of the doctors, but it's the whole society is getting hit by it. Another topic: how are we going to protect elderlies? Like, coronavirus target is not us, is elderlies. The virus is going after to kill all of our senior people, right? So a better question would be how you can protect your grandma or grandpa, right? Or if they've been passed away, I'm sorry to hear that. If that's the case, you could just ask your friends, grandpa or grandma, just to understand their fears and stresses. So you could just see, okay, how can I become their protectors by developing a solution that works for them? So there is a lot of people who are getting hit by this coronavirus. So don't only focus on the doctors. There is a whole society at range.
Okay, great. Thanks. That answers my question.
Thanks for the question, Ula. I might add to it that there's a channel dedicated to health and med people, for them to support you with all the meritorical data about the problems. We're also, as organizers, we're trying to attract as many people, from the actual front line, that they're dealing with the problems that there are. But it's really, really tough, as they're on fire right now. They're in the front line. They're trying to deal with the chaos, embrace it, and which is often hard. But that's why you need to be very proactive in looking for that information. So all that Behrad said, I think is really applicable. Also, you have the community here on Slack, so feel free to use it. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And in case that you lack ideas, just go on LinkedIn and just say, hey, I'm a developer, I would like to develop a solution. What are the industries that are getting hit by it? And just put the hashtag coronavirus and ask your friend to share it. And I'm sure you get a lot of different responses. So there's a lot of areas that you could help. Right now there is a traffic to help doctors, but they're not the only ones who need their helps. Any other question, guys?
All right. I don't see any more questions. So yeah, so you remember, you have those channels. You have UX UI channels. You can reach out there. You can put a question out there. You can also reach out to Behrad and all our UX UI mentors if you have that sort of need right now. Yeah. So Behrad, would you like to add anything?
All good. Yeah, you reach out to me in case you are, in case you are lacking ideas, or in case you have UX problems. Would be more than happy to help you. There is a number of UX designers, UX mentors in the mentor channel are ready to help you. So please reach out to us. We don't know who needs help. So, and it's a big organization right now. So if you need help, we're more than happy to help you and get your ideas off the, get your ideas going. So please, let's get to work. And if you need help, just reach out.
Behrad, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge. It's great having you. Thank you guys for joining us. And yeah, let's keep up. Thanks.
No, bye. Thank you guys. Bye.